I've got a little bit of butterflies in my stomach, in part because I think I finally understand that feeling that people get when they're like, oh, I don't want to go back and watch my old content. I was so weird looking, or I don't want to hear my own voice or look at my own face. And I've got a little bit of that because I never ever go back and watch my other stuff. Like once I finish editing it, I put it up on YouTube, and then I'm just like, all right, it's there, and I just like go on with my day. But this is the first video that I'm making where I'm gonna watch my own video. It sounds a bit odd. What's gonna be fun about this is that I think it's the only video I can do this with. I think that's why I'm so excited for this idea, is I think it's the only video of a game that I played, because it has to meet these qualifications, right? It has to be a game that I played, that I've kind of forgotten what my feelings were on it, and then there's a sequel to it coming out that directly follows the events of the first game. Turn my fingers this way. And now that I'm interested in playing the sequel, I want to revisit what I said before. So my predictions is that I'm going to comment that I didn't like it. I did eventually start to like it. I'm excited where things are going to go. I'm probably going to criticize Tetsuya Nomura because I think he's one of the worst directors of all time for video games. And I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens after that. Okay. So now let's pause this. Here we go. Turn this up on my side at least.
Director and concept design, Tetsuya Nomura, not one of my favorite people.
Dang, what is that? 17 seconds in? Like a bingo card. Do the same maneuver. What is it? How my video flipped.
Okay, alright. It was very good. That ending was very good. Damn. All right. Yeah, it was very good. It's so hard trying to say that this game is good, because I was slightly mistaken. Slightly. It's.
Come on, you can say it.
That ending sequence was so fucking good. It like made up for everything. Why couldn't the whole thing be like that? No, I'm kidding. God damn. I gave this game a 6.5. If you take out that ending sequence, I don't know if I can give it a 7. Because on my scale, you gotta think of it this way. On my scale,
alright,
10 is perfect. And then 5 is average.
I was doing 10s then.
And to give us a 6.5, I felt like that was pretty accurate.
It's weird. I gave up on the whole like scale thing. I think I was kind of just talking more just like rambling off the top of my head, because if I were to do scores, which I don't anymore, I think for a very, very short point in time, I was like trying to be like, I want to try to see if I can come up with my own review system. And when I was doing that, it was definitely out of 5. Well, I guess I did do 10 according to this guy, but I would say 5, because I think the idea was I wanted there to be a clear difference between 3, which I felt was average, and then 2, which was below average, and then like a 4, which is really, really good, and then 5, which is like, you know, Elden Ring. And I've always thought the 10 score was kind of a bit odd in a way, because I think that if something's 10, it's like obviously perfect. And then if something's 5, you're thinking failing grade, like you're thinking school, right? If you get a 5, that's a 50%, you've failed it. But then what would be like a 4 or a 3 if like 5 is failing? So.
But after having finished it, what was this? 45 hours for me, ish. It was good. It was very good. I would recommend it. And I'm curious to know. I'll say this too, as a naysayer, as the 1% that wasn't feeling this game, I'll say this. If you can finish this game and not like it, there's something seriously wrong there.
Okay. All right. You know, I start to piece together why people don't do this, why they don't go back and watch their own stuff, because it is a bit silly. What the hell was I thinking? if you finish the game, what did I say? If you finish the game and you don't like it, there's something wrong there. I did finish Dead Island. I didn't like it. So maybe there's something wrong with me.
It's called Yosh. There's something seriously wrong there. There's no way you can reach the end of this game and not like it.
No way?
It's very good.
Two Justins.
That ending made up for everything. Made up for everything. There's a lot of people who don't like it.
Oh, that's right. And back then I didn't have like a chat on screen, so I don't know who would have said that. I know somebody came by the stream and said that there's a lot of people who don't like it. You know what? I do remember something about this. What I do remember was that there was like, because it differed from the original FF7 game, some people didn't like that it did that. I forget which sequence of the game that it was. I mean, obviously the whole ending with like, well, spoilers, but the whole ending with Sephiroth and, you know, the live stream and the people seeing the visions of the Advent children and stuff, all that stuff, you know, is new. And I forget exactly what point in the game it was, but there was a kind of a clear point where the game kind of tells you, all right, we're not following any of the stuff that we did before. So that being said, I guess if you're like a FF7 purist back then, because I think people have kind of warmed up to the game more so now, especially with the announcement of Part 2. If you're an FF7 purist, you might not have appreciated the fact that they didn't at least like market that like it's going to be different. Like when you title it FF7 Remake, you're probably thinking we're going to get beat for beat, shot for shot the same, just updated for the PS4. So I guess if that was your expectation, that we're going to get an exact copy and you didn't, then yeah, I could see people not liking that.
I have to... You know what? You know what's really funny? I'm going to go on an anime tangent for a second.
What is funny?
Because I just finished saying that if you don't like it and you finished it, there's something wrong there.
Am I going to talk about Attack on Titan?
It's like in the anime where there's like an evil character and they're fucking super evil, like Sasuke, because I see Brandon in the chat. And then after they turn back to the good, they have to kind of like sympathize with other evil characters because they're like, well, I know what it was like to be that dark.
Okay.
I feel like if I knew somebody that didn't like this, we'd have Yuri Lowenthal. I knew he was there. He is Johnny Yuri Lowenthal. I knew he was in the game as Sasuke. I knew it. But if I would love to have a conversation, chat, text, FaceTime, whatever. If somebody didn't like it, I gotta talk to them. I gotta talk to them because I didn't like this either until. And Thryden would know. Like it was such a back and forth. I think right before the plate was dropped, I was like, okay, this is really good.
Right before the plate was dropped, I'm trying to remember. Maybe I'll talk about it here in a second. I'm trying to remember at what point that was. I mean, obviously right before the plate was dropped, but I wonder like what it was building up to that moment that kind of like got me to change my thoughts on the game.
And I like it so much now that I'm okay with them taking however long they need for the next one, because there's
Ray Chase is in there.
Right. They did it right. I'm trying to think of what I feel they could have improved on within this game as it was. I mean, everything was in there that I can remember. Everything was in there that I can remember. I'm trying to really think. I mean, Red 13 didn't attack Hojo and chew at his neck. But other than that, I mean...
No, that wasn't in there. Not even close. I don't even think they confront each other at all. I think I'm just glancing at chat here.
See, I don't know, and it's funny, Brandon, because like I was thinking about this before I was going to come back to stream. I was thinking, how funny was it that you were super hyped for Final Fantasy 15, like throughout the entire time I knew you, versus 13 and then 15, and then when that game came out, you didn't like it, and I did like it, and I was like, what? I was like trying to convince you, like, well, what about this? And this was so cool, and then it flipped, and then you liked this one, and I was like, I didn't really like it.
Yeah, I remember
I know 15. I know. That's all I was gonna say about it. Is just that like because we've talked at length about like how your idea for what 15 was supposed to be is perfect, and
yeah, I remember. Never mind.
wish it was that, but we got what we got, and that's it, and that's it. But this game,
I want to say before past Justin says this, one of the things I like about doing some sort of pseudo review during the credits, and I think I still kind of keep that up. I mean, if there's a credits and I can speak over it, you know, I generally try to, and I like a lot of the games, and I think it's like the best time for me to do any sort of like pseudo review because I just finished it. Like, it's not like I've given it a few days. It's not like I have to write a script and be like, this game's graphics and music were, you know, it's like I can just kind of come and be like, okay, like, you know, now that it's over and now that I'm not like focused on trying to pay attention to the story or complete the game, here are kind of like my off the cuff thoughts of the game. So I think I said that at one point during one of the live streams I did in the past that like, I kind of like that I do that because I don't think other than Dead Island, I don't know if, and Hollow Knight, there weren't really too many games I can think of that I was just kind of like, I wasn't really feeling it while I was going through this review thing.
The game was so important, and I don't want to try to like switch sides and be like, oh, I'm on the side of people who really love FF7. There was FF8, there was Lunar, there was Parasite Eve, there was Legend of Dragoon. There was a ton of JRPGs that came out, Xenogears, right around the time of this game. So to me, it was just a game in passing. And then years later, did I learn?
I have said that before.
Really, really love this game. But I was okay with it never coming out. I was like, I like what it was and what it meant to video games at the time. To get it after all this time and Square to say, we're gonna do it right, we're gonna do it such and such a way, I had zero faith in that. I'm okay with saying that. I had zero faith that they were gonna be able to pull this off.
Yeah.
And it was very good. And the stuff that they've incorporated from at least the only other part of Final Fantasy, Advent Children and Crisis Core, was smooth. It could have been way weirder. But
Let's go on, Thryden. Do my eyes deceive me, Mr. I'm done with FF7 and never gonna revisit it? Is having a change of heart? You know, you're about to eat your words because I think I did say this back then, and all my FF7 videos are privated because they're like hours long. But I think I might say this. You might give 2020 Justin a chance to say this. I think I did say that I'm gonna come back to the game and play it before the next one comes out. So that's what, and I thought about that too. Right when I saw the announcement for Rebirth, I was like, damn, guess I gotta play FF7 again. I mean, I'm still not gonna turn this one on. Like, you know, I'm not gonna turn on FF7. I might play FF7 Remake again before Rebirth comes out. Like, I might. I mean, it's next year, so it's not like, you know, who knows what I might think in a year. But I would imagine maybe a few weeks before Remake comes out or Rebirth, I might play FF7 Remake just so it's kind of fresh in my mind.
I've always been a story guy. I feel like if for a game's gameplay to really make me not like it, it's got to be on a different level. And the battle system was cool. It was frustrating. But I was frustrated with Bloodborne, and I love Bloodborne.
I remember you saying you were done, and I remember telling you to wait for part 2. You know what? Well, I that does sound kind of familiar now that I'm reading it again. I'm like, you know what? I think you did. Yeah, I think you did say something like that. I'll give it up.
This game's battle system, and I still think the battle system is simply okay. My issue, I'm going on a huge thing. My two things, and I don't want to make it too long, about the combat system is that you needed to have magic. This game kept doing this thing where it would throw so many different types of enemies at you. It would give you crabs, or like some crab enemies, and it's like, oh, they're weak to ice. And you kill them, and then it's like, oh, the next enemies are weak to fire. You fight those, then you fight mechs, and it's like, these are weak to lightning. So you had to like constantly keep magic up. If you wanted to use purple spheres, yellow spheres, or just like level up green spheres, you really couldn't because...
I'm gonna critique and support what 2020 Justin is saying. I do still feel that way because I haven't played the game since, and I haven't really looked at it. So I feel like I do still hold this opinion. which was there. And what I don't think that 2020 Justin is talking about is there was a point. Man, I don't even know where it was. I think you had to like climb from. You're going to go save or rescue Aerith, and the point that I'm referring to here is there was specifically a point where like you kept getting different types of enemies, and that's when it hit me the hardest. That like in order to get the stagger, you needed to use the weakness, of an enemy, and they kept throwing so many different types of enemies at you that had nothing to do with the environment that you kind of needed, at least I needed to kind of equip all my characters with different types of magic. And yeah, I think there was some other enemies that obviously I'm talking about here where I would equip like fire and I'd have my characters outfitted and I'd run across certain enemies and it'd take me forever to stagger them or I just couldn't. Then I'd change it up and then move on to other enemies and then obviously I couldn't stagger them. I think I encountered that with the house too. There's in the arena, whatever. But yeah, I think I think I still feel that way. As far as the support, I guess it's both a critique and support.
Without using their weakness, they just took forever.
Yeah, they did.
So eventually, they did some sort of AOE that like knocked you off, or you couldn't stagger them. So I wouldn't say I wish, but like that was a very frustrating part of the game that you needed magic. If you didn't use it, then your fights, you could do it, but your fights just took way longer.
That's true.
So that's my criticism of the battle system, is that you needed magic. If you didn't need magic and instead most of the enemies required you to stagger them in different ways, hit this enemy so many times, hit them in the back like the jetpack guys,
I do still feel that way.
Interrupt them when they're doing this attack, block their attacks. If they kept that up with like, here's how you stagger them, that would be cool. But if wind, and then when it was
okay, so I want to comment on this. I was wondering if this would actually happen. I don't know if it was entirely a computer issue because I haven't gone back and rewatched some of my live streams, so I actually don't know if this is happening. I think it was a computer issue, but I had this issue, and Thryden, you may recall that we talked about this way back when I played this game. But I think if I streamed for too long, like longer than like 2 hours, on playback or I guess like on a VOD, the video would like sometimes cut. Like it would cut like just like it almost felt like 2 seconds into the future. It would just like erase it. And the only reason I brought that up is because I was saying something and then quite clearly all of a sudden I just moved forward in time. So
up with like, here's how you stagger them, that would be cool. But if wind, and then when it was, you pop them with it, they get pressured and they're knocked down, and then you pound on them until they're officially staggered. And it was just weird that it worked like that. But yeah, that's kind of like my complaint of the combat system in a nutshell. The only other thing that's like a small complaint is I wish that like when you dodge things, you could actually get out of the way of it. In my fight,
I think that was the case. It's been a while, but I think you could dodge. I think I know what I'm referring to in this. There's some moves that do just track on you. But I think what I'm specifically talking, like if an enemy's going to shoot you with gunfire, they're going to hit you. Like you can't like, I think you can line of sight them with maybe objects or something, but I don't think you can like, if they're like 6 feet in front of you and you like dodge roll to the left, right as they shoot, they're still going to hit you.
With Sephiroth, I kept doing this the whole game, which is like I would see an attack and I'm like, oh, they're charging up and they're like, and they're charging and they're going to charge in a straight line. I'm like, no problem. I'll just run. Okay, if I can't block it and I can't dodge it, then I just get hit. Like, okay, that's weird. But that and the elements, the combat was, or that part of the combat was frustrating. Story-wise, the only thing I think would knock it down just a little bit for me on the story was, because it was pretty much the same story, was that I wish that the way characters interacted with each other was a bit more realistic.
Here we go.
There were like 15 times in the game that Cloud would be like, and he'd like grab his head, and somebody would be like, Cloud? And then he'd like, it's nothing. Or he would be like, is that you? After grabbing his head, and then run down a bridge, jump in the air, and slice at something, and nobody commented on the fact that he just like had an episode. That was weird to me. It was weird that like they did.
So I'm going to comment on this. I still think that's weird. But I was over at a friend's place and he and I were watching, because sometimes he'll just put on live streams of people at random. and we were both watching FF7 Remake. And what was funny is what we flipped, like the things that 2020 me is complaining about, he didn't have an issue with, or that he started to have an issue with, and me of today is like, it's not that bad. Thryden, the Aerith hate that I started having at late game. Are you saying you started having Aerith hate, or are you talking about me? There was a point, I still feel that way, but I think, that's right, yeah, okay, yeah. I was gonna say that there was a point in playing this game, in watching other games, because so there's a bit of a tangent, but I was listening to a podcast. I won't say which one. I don't want to trigger anybody. I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about how bad the writing and dialogue is in Final Fantasies, and one of the podcast hosts was like, you know what, guys, I think it's always been bad. We just didn't know. And I think he's right, because I wanted to sit up here. Man, Aerith looks kind of weird in that screenshot, or that still. I wanted to say, like, no, the writing's been good, like it's good in FF10 or it's good in this. It's always been like that. It's always been goofy, silly dialogue and voice acting, and it's just, I was a kid, so you just put up with it. But I kind of wanted to comment on what 2020 me is talking about, because I'm saying this from the perspective of the original FF7 didn't have voice acted dialogue. So the first time I get a chance to hear these characters, I say first time as if FF7 Advent Children doesn't count, but the first time I get to hear these characters recite the things that I recalled them kind of saying when I played on the PS1, it didn't quite seem believable. Like they also didn't act like people. And I don't know if I'm going to say this in this clip, but I oftentimes say that the characters in Witcher 3, very few of them are human, and they interact with each other more like humans than the people in this game did. And that's not really a fault of the game. That's just how Square Enix writes. I guess it's just what it is. Like, they've done that in FF 10, 12, 13, 15, and then this one. Like, they always write like that. That's just always what they do. They always write like this, like, cheesy, this is not how people speak dialogue. And so it's a knock at the time. I'm not going to say that I'm going to retract everything that I said then. What I said back then is still valid. I just kind of want to, as we near closer to Rebirth, I kind of want to give my thoughts on what I thought then versus what I'm thinking about now. And Thryden, you're saying here, I was telling you it was fine when it first happened because you got annoyed when she first appeared. Yeah. I mean, it's always gonna like be something that I think I always thought was weird, but I've just kind of come to accept. Because, and the scene that I think you're talking about, and I thought this was weird right from the get, and I still do, it's just, like I said, it doesn't bother me as much anymore, which is when you encounter Aerith for the first time, and she's like waving away at the ghosts, the whispers or whatever, and she grabs Cloud can see the whispers now, and then I guess he's going to square off against them, and then Aerith runs away, and she's like behind a corner, and she's like, see ya, it was nice to meet you, and runs away. And I was just like, this is not how like a human would react in this situation. Like, this is so goofy, but whatever.
Didn't try to update that for the way you might react to somebody if they were to do that. Very, very anime, very anime with the mannerisms, especially Tifa. Thryden would know too. During the early parts, they had the Japanese girl thing, which she would be like, got it, and it's like, nobody really does that outside of like anime or cutesy Japanese girls for commercials. And I get that it's a Japanese game, but I think that those little ticks really took me out of the experience. And I criticized them for it.
It's funny.
But looking through some of the images here, I know a lot of them have passed. The
like I said,
Neo stuff, the dancing.
Like I said, Brandon actually found that way more annoying than I did when we watched it. He was just like, oh, now that I'm singing, he was like, yeah, this is really dumb. And I was like, yeah, it is. But at the same time, like I said, my opinion on it's kind of changed a bit.
The cross-dress scene, all of that was really good. Reno and Rude were super good. Sung, the Turks were perfect. And the things that they did improve on, the things that I felt that they decided to change, I liked. I loved the changes. Like President Shinra, the way that he died versus, I think the way it happened in the original was you got captured in the elevator, and then you got put in prison, and then in the middle of the night, the doors were open. Cloud has an episode with Genova. You go to the top of Shinra, and then President Shinra is dead with a sword in his back. And it's just like,
I think that is accurate.
Recognize that sword? Sephiroth did it. That's cool for 1997 or 8 or whenever that game came out. But it was way cooler how like other people could see him, and in the original game, you're chasing a character that nobody really knows. They're just chasing clues of Sephiroth. In this game, they updated it. They're like, here he is for real. You can hear him. You can touch him.
I did think this was
cool.
cool.
You know what he's talking about. You know what his motive is because he's told you. So now, when you're going to go on through the rest of Final Fantasy VII, you have a clear antagonist and villain in mind. And so every time he pops up, whether he's some sort of Genova illusion or not, it's, you know him. You, the player, and the characters in the world know about him. So I like that. That was a great change.
Yeah, I would agree.
Chat here. I'm just reading.
I was gonna use my other monitor here to pull up stuff to verify what this guy's talking about.
A little bit about the stagger system in 13. The only thing about 13 I've ever seen anybody play was you, Brandon, and it was 13-2. And I don't know anything about the combat system. I only know the story, which is okay. But I like it. I like it as a package, and I was hoping. I said this on Twitter too, where I said I really hope. When I was playing through the game, I said I really hope this gets to a point where it gets good, because I wanted to like it. I like stuff. I really don't come into anything, movies, TV shows, you know, games.
Times have changed.
Something. I don't. It's honestly, I like a lot of the games, TV shows, and movies that I like.
Oh. But
I wanted to like this, and I specifically didn't read any reviews because I didn't want to be swayed, potentially on the negative side of being like it's not as good as the original. But I like it. I liked looking through some of these images that are going here or clips.
Oops.
I really like that they.
The only thing I kind of got like minorly spoiled with FF7 Remake, I don't even know if it really counts as a spoiler, but the thing I kind of got minorly spoiled was when it was like on my Apple TV around the time this game came out, like because I watched some gaming videos on it, I saw Sephiroth's big face and it said One-Winged Angel, and I don't know how far I was in the game, but I definitely wasn't close to where he was. And I remember thinking at the time that I saw it, I was just like, oh, so I guess you're going to fight him. But it was still surprising when I actually did have to fight him. I remember my reaction was like, I got to fight him? So.
Brought life. I think Shiva Jones, I think you mentioned this with like concern with it feeling padded. And I want to say there are times when it kind of does, but it's really hard because they really brought Midgar to life. Listening to people talk about their life savings.
I always
like
talk about this.
Our house and our life savings were in Sector 7. You know, or being like, it woke, like the sound of the plate dropping woke me up. Like, everyone was talking about it, and people were like, the power line. Or the power
I always go to
lines,
these
like,
examples.
I
don't remember any others except for these exact ones I always talk about.
I thought that all of those tiny things that they tried to do, where you're running past characters in the game, and they're commenting on Avalanche, they're commenting on Midgar, they're commenting on Shinra. All of that stuff was really cool. I don't think this was in the original game either, but they made Wutai a bigger thing at the beginning of this game. I could be wrong about that, but like they kept bringing up almost like in a heavy-handed way, like, you know, well, we'll just say they were with Avalanches with Wutai, or our war
I think they do that in the
Wutai.
original, actually.
They're talking about that already? Okay. But I guess that makes sense. Like if you were talking about a war that had been over, yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think that they did talk about that in the original.
I would argue that you have to put Sephiroth in the game like that because the story is separated into multiple games now. Yeah, I was very surprised that Sephiroth was in it. I'm surprised. It totally caught me off guard.
See, that's kind of a. I think that's kind of a. I mean, obviously now I think it's weird, but it is a weird thing to be surprised that he's not in it. And I'm probably gonna say why here in a second, but of course he'd be in it. Like, there's no way that they could have gone 3 years and not shown him. I think I was saying that even when I played the game, like, it's like, because everybody playing this, even if you've never played FF7, you know who Sephiroth is. And so the idea that like they're talking around this guy, like, you know, and it's you know, the stories like Cloud like alludes to him, and they're alluding to like Genova Cells and Soldier, and you know, it would have been odd if like that guy's floating out around in Smash Brothers and in Advent Children and all this other media, but he's not in this game. That would have been a bit strange. And like I had already said in the video, it was it's nice that they did just show him. They showed him quite early too, and they were just like, listen, we're just gonna throw this guy in here.
Because I'm a normie, and I'm over here thinking the end of the game is gonna be the bridge at the end of that's not even disc 1, that's just like the end of Midgar. That's where I'm thinking the game is going to end. So when they threw Sephiroth at you, I was just like, okay, wait, that makes sense that he would be in it, because like it's Sephiroth, you got to put him in.
Funny enough, my first introduction to
Heartless Angel, which I don't think he had Heartless Angel.
Yeah, he didn't have Heartless Angel. That's a Kingdom Hearts ability. Funny enough, my very first introduction to FF is or to your introduction to FF is Final Fantasy Dissidia. Wow, okay. Damn, that's interesting. Like, I wonder, because I feel like the reason why that game works is because people are like into the Final Fantasy characters in some capacity already. That's kind of interesting that you kind of like played that one. I recently watched all the cutscenes for Final Fantasy Dissidia, and I feel like I know who half the characters are, but if I didn't know who any of them were, I'd be like, what are these people talking about?
Angel in the original 7. Maybe he did, but I don't think he had Heartless Angel. I think that's a move that he got in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, Heartless Angel. I mean, he could have had it.
They need to include Sephiroth. It's pointless to try and pretend. Yeah, I like the fact that, and Brandon, I think we talked about this too, just offline, that I was excited to see how they used him, because you don't really technically see Sephiroth until I think disc 3. Because he's in the ice.
That's such a technicality.
He's like shades of him, but you never see him. And I guess it's still a shade of him anyway, but like everybody knows who he is, everybody knows what he's done. So dancing around that would have been weird. Like the man in the black cloak, right? As I think how they describe him in the original game. It's like, you know, I did see a man in a long black trench coat, now that you mention it. It's like going into part 2 of this game, they don't need to know that. Like they could say that, like, yeah, we saw a man in a black trench coat, and everybody in your party is gonna be like, cool, thank you, we got it. Which way did he go? Manifesting through his clones mirrors what happened with Kodaj and Advent Children. So Brandon, I don't know if you wanted to like text this to me or not, but you said that, I think you said you had some things you wanted to talk about the ending, because I'm kind of curious. If I tried to predict what I think you might say, it would either be about those people with the numbers on their shoulders, or it would be about what I think is a huge deal, which is the Whispers. That might be the best part of the game, right? That has to be the best part of the game.
It's funny that I said that's the best part of the game, because I feel like after I got done with like my playthrough and I was watching some other videos on FF7, that is like most people's least favorite part of the game. They all hated that. They all hated the Whispers and the, you know, and how they kind of like were interjected into the FF7 timeline. I thought they were cool. I'm curious what I'm going to say about them, but not to predict what I might say, but how I feel about them now is I like that their inclusion allowed the game to be different, because they weren't in the original game. And so because they weren't in the original game, that game's timeline is what it is. But in this game, they do exist, and they kind of exist to also... They exist in this game to also indicate that they were in the other game as well. They're kind of like in all timelines. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I watch maybe the Rebirth trailer, which isn't that long. But I like them. I like them because they're, like I said, them being in the game allowed the game to tell you this is going to be different than what you know.
The game is the Whispers. The fact that there are these entities, if my understanding is correct, that exist kind of in tandem with the planet to ensure that people kind of move about through the life stream like they're supposed to. That's cool. That's interesting. And I feel like it gives Square Enix, there they go, an interesting way of like writing themselves out of some corners, because it'll... Whoa.
Trophy.
Aha. Chapter selection. Cannot take screenshot now. No, I'm not trying to. Ah. Okay. Uncompleted quests. Find story. Yeah, I love that so far he is only... Okay. Yeah, do you notice the chip bag that flew past?
Oh, here we go. Here's when they talk about
chip bag?
Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Here's some of those moments of me being like the casual normie that I am when it comes to games, where like I don't notice something and then somebody points something out and I'm like mind explosivo. So what's about to happen, I'm probably not going to like lose my mind, but what's about to happen is that I didn't notice that the bag that floats by when Zack survives his encounter with the Shinra soldiers, I didn't notice it was that one. I mean, I guess it showed a different dog than what was in the original video. And so because that was different, it indicates that there's a different timeline.
Zack. The chip bag? It had the stamp dog on it, right? I mean, I don't know if there's something I was supposed to get about that. Oh, dude, I don't think I noticed the breed of dog. I thought that they were all different pictures of the same dog. This picture of the stamp, it was a different breed of dog. So basically the Zack scene is an alternate timeline. No fucking shit. Are you gonna throw this at me, dude? a timeline? An alternate timeline? See, the way that I saw it, and I know that I'm the person streaming, so like I can like talk infinitely, is that like the way that I saw that, and I could definitely be wrong because I'm wrong about everything, is that when stuff is hitting the characters and we're seeing like clips from Advent Children or we're seeing like the ending of FF7, is like, I don't know where I want to go with this. I guess my thought is that like that's what's kind of supposed to happen, and people are seeing what's possibly going to happen, but they're kind of seeing it in bits and pieces. In Crisis Core, that same battle. Okay, I watched a bit of roundtable discussions of what's going on at the end of F7 theories about alternate timelines. Yep. I don't know, because I mean, without seeing these same videos, I would disagree, at least with my own brain and the eyes that I'm using to play this game. Like, from what I'm seeing, everything that we've seen that's happened. I'm going to read. So something Brandon said, hold on. In Crisis Core, that same battle was where Zack died. This one, he clearly didn't.
I'm waiting for myself to notice it.
Let me think about that. You're right.
It's kind of embarrassing because it's like the defining thing about Cloud is that Zack dies, which is how he gets the Buster Sword and he lives in Remake. And I'm like, hold on a minute.
Unless. Shit. Damn it. I was going to say, unless when he's carrying Cloud, that's before he gets he confronts the Shinra soldiers. But that wouldn't really make sense because he just finished fighting them, and then to cut back to a scene earlier before he fought them would have been weird. And didn't Biggs die in the original game?
Yeah, I think so. You'll look the stuff up on the side. Fact check.
I mean, personally, Thryden was telling me that that he didn't, or that Wedge didn't die. I thought they all died. I mean, you know, if I can jump on the train of like, yeah, I'm an FF7 fan too, like the rest of y'all. I would say that like, I mean, it took me 54 hours in the bottom left. I remember FF7, but like, it's not like crystal clear in my mind. It's like I remember Fort Condor. I hope I live till Fort Condor because I want to see Fort Condor. Give me Fort Condor.
It's funny. Fort Condor does exist.
Things that I remember about FF7. I can't.
I'm alive.
Really
I could play it.
Remember like every small detail. Devin was by the stream. He swung by the stream the other day, and I was mentioning like, oh, I like how they did Reeve. This makes a lot more sense. And he goes, that's how they did Reeve before. I was like, okay, like I didn't know. So Wedge and Big survived, but it sounds okay. Crisis Core is okay. Is it? Yeah, it's pretty good. I didn't like Crisis Core. It gets into Kingdom Hearts levels of bullshit. Oh yeah, because Crisis Core has Genesis in it.
Yeah,
Genesis
it does.
Also ends, or Genesis. Crisis Core ends in a really, really stupid way, but because also Crisis Core does something that I think is like blasphemy, which is that it gives a backstory to the Buster Sword.
I do feel this way still.
And the Buster Sword already had a backstory. So Crisis Core is like, nah, it didn't really belong to Zack. It belonged to Angeal. And you're like, who the fuck is this guy?
Oh man, I was just talking to a friend about this the other day, and a lot of the points I was saying are still true. Man, in some ways I don't really change, in others I do. I was trying to look this up. I mean, it's so. This has been an issue that I've had for years, but like, it's always tricky sometimes when new information comes out about a story, and then you try to go back and look at like what what the original information was, but now it's been overwritten by the new information. I'm trying to find if Biggs died in the original game, and it's. I mean, I shouldn't be looking this up because I know he did. It's just tricky because now everything's like all remake focused. It's like FF7. I mean, the fact that it like when you type in his name, one of the immediate results is death. And it says here too, survives in another timeline. So he definitely dies. It's just, man, I remember I had that issue with like super small tangent with World of Warcraft. That was an issue in World of Warcraft, I remember, where like there'd be information like before one of the expansions came out, there would be information about a particular character, and then when more information became available, I was like, wait, I don't think that matches with the new information. And I go back and look it up, and now all of the information about this character is just the new stuff. And I'm like, well, it's like, I can't look it up now. And Thryden, you're saying, yeah, that was my info, and from there, delve into the lore and history. That's fine. Okay. Everyone died. Oh, my girl Jessie back, though. She lived. No, she didn't. Whoops.
And then he's just some dude who was also in Soldier, and then he gives the sword to Zack, and then Zack dies and gives the sword to Cloud. It's like, oh man, like it was a whole lot cooler when you just knew it belonged to one other person.
Yeah, everyone did die. Yeah, but they lived this time.
Okay, well, what's really fascinating is that I don't know. I'm not a huge trophy fiend, so did I save it? I think I did. I hope I did. Let's save. So I or. Oh, okay.
This music was really good.
Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about that with the
and that's why I picked this
timeline thing. I mean, listen, I'm full of hot takes. What I will say is, if they do an alternate timeline sort of situation, I don't know if I'll like that.
See, at the moment, I'm all for an alternate timeline. And this is actually one of the things I was hoping to get at in doing this stream and making this video, is that I actually am completely down for an alternate timeline. And I think obviously it's been 2 years. I've had a chance to watch other content. I've had a chance to think about it more. And yeah, no, I think like, first off, I think it's completely obvious that this game is an alternate timeline, like, clearly. But at the same time, that's what I want. I mean, I know how the original game goes. We all do. Well, maybe not we all do. I mean, we can just go back and play it. But we know how the original game goes. We can go back and play it. I want to see... They've kind of... I don't know. It's just... It seems, like I said, that they just decided we're just going to tell a different story. Like, it's a different... It's not even the different telling of the same story. It's just... This is like another dimension. An alternate timeline where other events are happening just slightly differently than the main one we all know. I'm all for it.
I mean, it's a remake, right? So, like, one thing I really hope that they would do is just add a lot more context and depth into stuff that we already got from the game, but don't change anything that, like, don't remove stuff and don't, like, change, like,
oh, I gotta pull something up while
something wacky about
my other me is talking.
And I say that also saying that the Whispers are in the game. So
not anymore.
I like them, but I think I like the Whispers from the perspective that when you interact with them, when you touch them, or they touch you, or something that is a conduit to the Whispers, when they make contact with somebody, you see as like a brief flash, like something that will happen, because everything's on a path. The Livestream has like a plan for everybody. But I think that people are seeing it in glimpses, and that's probably what I think. I meant to say this, but I think that's what Sephiroth is doing. I think that what's happening is that Sephiroth has seen the same, if not similar, glimpses into
organized.
like, oh, I'm actually going to be like the leader of the world. Like, this is my thing. Yeah, but he's not seeing himself getting cut up by Omnislash at the end. So he might have the same problem where he's only seeing flashes. Yeah, I'd be curious to know if Aerith has the full story. I'm pretty sure she doesn't, because they were asking her questions like, well, what does this mean? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know how to get to the promised land. You know, like, I don't know, you know, what's going on. All I know, I can feel it, and I can kind of, you know, I have some sort of deeper connection to what's going on. It was good. It was good. I'm going to be listening to some other stuff while not any sort of official revision of score. I think that taking the ending into account and just my own personal experience before I get swayed by too many other reviews and spoiler discussions and stuff like that, I would probably give this out of 10.
I think I said 9.
10 being perfect?
I think I give it a 9.
Probably a 9. I think 9. I think it did everything that it could do. I think everything that it sought out to do, it did as well as it could.
Yeah, and I think I still feel that way. I think it's good. And I know I'm saying this on the high of the credits, but the present day me is saying this off of the perspective of kind of reflecting back on it, right? Getting a chance to, I mean, it's not even like, oh, I'm going to sit on this game for a while. Like, I've had 2 years. And yeah, I mean, I still feel like there are things about the game that they weren't bad. It was just, I didn't quite expect them to be what they were, which is, like I said, the dialogue, you know, and the voice acting kind of with the way people interacted with each other. But as much as I found it annoying in the moment, I think that reflecting back on it, it wasn't enough to bring down the experience as a whole. Like, in the moment, I was like, oh my God, I want to turn this game off. There were points when I really felt like, man, I want my $60 back. But like I said, holistically, it's still good.
Things like, oh, it's too Japanese, like
there it is.
That's an opinion, and that's like well, not really an opinion, it's a preference. But the combat style, I don't know if that's a preference. Come on now. But I think everything that it set out to do, voice acting, music, graphics, combat, pacing,
it was a little padded.
Story, changes, everything that it set out to do, it seemed that it knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
And I think the FF7 fans would, I think they'll really like it. But as Brandon mentioned a bit earlier, I could see some of the diehards,
the purists,
probably having an issue with the ending. Like, I'm over here squirming in my chair because I want anything new. I already know FF7. Give me something I don't know. And they did. The entire ending chapter 18 sequence is like, hey, did you play the first game? Okay, fuck all that, because here you go. We're gonna throw something completely new at you. I hope people do like it though. I'm always interested in playing something new. I love newer games. I always like newer stuff more than older stuff. So if you're gonna throw something old at me and it be new, then go full in on the new.
I'm reading some stuff about Genova right now.
They got their work cut out for them, because I know that Square Enix, what you said, Shiva Jones, about like bringing the city to life, because this is just Midgar. This is just Midgar. Like, what about the rest of the map? And forget the map, because I don't think that they're going to go with a world map idea. I think we might be done with world maps. I think you'll probably see it like a Horizon or a Witcher method, where you like run on horseback or chocobo back or something. But I don't know if you'll like go to like a bird's eye like
chocobo back
map. But they got their work cut out for them for the next ones, because if this is how much effort they put into Midgar, I hope it's not another 20 years before we see part 2. But if this is what they did to Midgar, like, what?
So FF7 Rebirth is going to launch in 2023 winter. That's pretty, I mean, honestly, that's much faster than I thought it was going to be. I mean, that's why I said like another 20 years, because when you think about it, the first FF7 thing that we saw was the tech demo for the PS3, which I guess was 2005. And then from there, you went Advent Children, which is 2006. And then after that, I don't really count Dirge of Cerberus, and I'm not going to count Crisis Core. So from that point, you didn't see anything else in the FF7 world that was that harkened back to the game and that world. You just didn't see it until, what was it, 2015? I think the trailer was shown for FF7 Remake. And then I guess 4 years later, 5, it was released. So yeah, I mean, to think that 3 years, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's actually faster than I thought it was going to be.
What's Gold Saucer going to look like? I mean, Gold Saucer is pretty much wall market, like, times 1,000. $8.5. That's good. I can agree with an 8.5. I still think I'm probably being a little generous by giving it a 9, because but my scale, like, it's old school, like school grades, right? Like if you got 100, you got an A plus. If you got 90, you still got an A, and if you got an 80, it's like, hey, you got a B. That's still good. You should feel good. C is like average, so it's 7 out of 10. But to give something like above average B, 8.5, B plus, or solid B if it's B plus, yeah, that's good. That's still a good, very good score.
Still reading about some Genova stuff. I don't know if I'll explore this right now.
This game about is how good it is versus how long it took to come out. Like, I don't want to open up any wounds here, but like,
That's a good point. I forgot I was going to talk about that. How good it is versus how long it took to come out. What am I going to say?
Really need to take like 14 years or 20 years or however long it was? Could you not have done this in 3?
That's what that's. Because I've done this in 3. The next one's coming out in 3 years.
5? That's a different thing, 8.5 is solid though. The only reason I think I'm pushing it slightly up to a 9, I'm giving it that 9, is because of that ending sequence. Without it, it's like a 7. It's the best I could do. But with that ending sequence and everything that we've been talking about with alternate timelines and seeing Advent Children cuts and seeing stuff implemented from Crisis Core and seeing and hearing the music and, their take on ATB, it's like, why isn't it turn battle? It's like, you'll still get your ATB if you want it.
Yeah, it's still in there.
Same way, but, here you go. Drops it a point or two versus like how long it took to come out. I mean, if we got this announced, like, just hypothetically, let's keep the scores that we gave it. Let's say hypothetically this got announced in 2015, which it may have, but like 2015, and then it came out when it came out. You'd have been like, Square Enix, I never left. It's like they still got it. But when you think about like FF12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and then we get this one, it's like, oh guys, come on. I would agree with a 9. It's not perfect for me either. 9, yeah, it's a generous 9. I mean, I know there's all these qualifiers, but like, yeah, and it's a smooth 9. But yeah, if I couldn't give it a 10, I can't, I never will. I didn't give the original a 10. And I'm also, something that'll prevent me from giving this game a 10 is simply the fact that it's nostalgic, sure, but nostalgia, maybe I'm lying, maybe Brandon can call me out on this, but like, I feel like I've never really been super nostalgic about a game. I mean, it always hits me, like,
let me think about that. I don't know. I'm sure that there's been some examples where I've been nostalgic about a game, but I as 2020 Justin just said, yeah, I mean, if I see like, oh, that game, I remember playing that game when I was 10 years old. That's cool that it's coming back, or that's cool that, I think that my perspective, I know for certain I'm not going to say this, so I'm going to say this for me now. My perspective is always, I'm glad that this game is getting remade or revisited in some way, even if it's like a remaster, because people that weren't into it then, or maybe didn't exist then, can now experience this thing that I got a chance to play. An example would be like RE2 Remake. That's like the first thing that comes to mind, right? Like, that game came out in, I want to say 98. I have this fancy computer over here. Let's take a look. Resident Evil 2 release date. I think it's 98. See? Yeah, 1998. But yeah, it's like, I mean, I played that game when I was a kid, but like I don't expect like, you know, people that are like 25, 26 to have to go back and play this 1998 game. Like, no, that's trash. But like, if you want to play RE2 Remake that came out in, I think that came out in 2017 or 2018, one of the 2 years. Yeah, that's cool. So if you want to reimagine, remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it, that's cool. I'm down for that. I think it's a good idea. So I'm more of the, I like to see stuff kind of be remade for other people. But as far as nostalgia, for me, nah. But I'm sure it's happened. I can't think of any examples, but I would say no.
Like, oh, Ocarina of Time remaster, that's cool. But like, that stuff hits me, but like, it's never like, you know, I'm jumping off the walls. So
yeah, there's people that jump off the walls.
When did they announce the remake? I don't know, dude. You know what I want to say when they announced it? I want to say 2013. Let me pull up a tab right quick. I think it was 2013.
Go past this.
If you don't remember, there's a song that you can pull up on YouTube called The Promised Land. It was the opening song to Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. It's one of the most beautiful songs ever to be associated with Final Fantasy. And that song, a rendition of it, is in this.
You know, it's funny too, that the whole time that I was going through this game, and at the very beginning and like halfway through, I was just like, man, I'm not liking this game. I think not, this stuck with me only because obviously negative stuff sticks with you more than positive stuff. But somebody, I think a handful of somebody's came by the stream and like, what, you're not enjoying this game? This game's real good. And I was like, not right now, it's not. And it's funny because I think like I was like, I don't think they said I wasn't like an FF7 fan, but they were like, did you not like the original? And I was like, bro, you don't know my history. It's like, I'm not going to go over all of it now, but yeah, I just had a whole bunch of FF7 stuff. I still have a poster of FF7 in my living room. I had all this Final Fantasy stuff. And I think that was actually more of a reason why I felt like my, not opinion was valid per se, but like that it wasn't like I was coming at this like having never played FF at all, FF7. And then was like, this isn't good. It was like, no, I did play it. And this is why it's weird for me. So
game, and it's a
yeah, The Promised Land. I think that song is called Cycle of Souls.
Flowers blooming in the church. Crazy good. So I wish, I mean, that might also be like part of the score, but I just categorize that as like music and visuals.
Am I doing like a score right now?
Announcement trailer was 2015 for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I just threw that out randomly. So the remake announcement trailer was 2015. I think the reason why it might seem longer is because of that fucking tech demo that came out in 2005.
Yeah.
When that tech, dude, when I was at my computer.
This is the story. I know this story. This is how you know this story is true. Because before I even say this story, I'm going to tell exactly what he's going to say. Because I remember when it happened, and I'll never forget it. And what the story is, I'll just let him tell it.
I was a kid, and when we pulled that, I had to use, what was that player called? DivX? It was like DIVX. We pulled this clip up of Killzone and the Final Fantasy VII tech demo. I was at my computer. This was like a 1998 piece of garbage computer. We looked at this game, the FF7 tech demo where Cloud jumps off the train. I turned to the person next to me and I was just like, we are never gonna hear the end of it. That was 2005. I said it to him. I was just like, fuck, we're never gonna hear the end of it.
Yeah, and the person that I'm referring to is a friend of mine named Brad that I grew up with. He played FF7, and not that it matters, but to this day, he would probably attest that he did not play the game with a strategy guide, and he totally did. The point, though, is that he was the person I was standing next to, and when I told him I was never, because he was also one of the people that when the PlayStation 2 was around, he was just like, man, can you imagine FF7 on the PlayStation 2? And I was like, nah, it's good where it is, like, you know. And then when the tech demo came out, and he was like tearing to me, I was like, no. Like, this is it, dude. The fact that they showed this means we have to deal with this again. Like, I feel like that the conversation of, we're not going to get it, they're just going to keep making other Final Fantasy games. I feel like those finally started to solidify. And then the tech demo showed up, and I was like, all right, here we go.
And then Advent Children came out a year later. And then again, it was like, come on, you guys can make a remake. You have Advent Children, you got the tech demo. I was like, I'm never going to hear the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm never going to hear the end of it. And then now, here we are. Oh, I guess this plays everywhere. Not really, like, I also wouldn't say that I'm a huge, like music is my thing, like a console.
I think I might be done talking about the game.
I played it and everything. I had the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. It was 3 discs, and as far as I knew, you could only import it from Japan or get it from a shop that had Japanese stuff. And I would listen to that soundtrack like every summer. Like,
I did.
I would put in all. We had this.
The disc changer.
We had this like disc changer like CD player, and when one disc would finish, it would just move on to the second one, and then move on to the third one, and I would just play it. And
even though I'm at the tail end, there's only 4 minutes left in this video. I don't know. I think of this video, I think I'm done talking about what I thought then. I think that's more or less kind of like wrapped up. Ultimately, it was fun. It was actually kind of fun to do this because on one hand, the idea was I wanted to see kind of like what my opinion was. I thought it was going to be a little bit more scathing. I remember myself being a little bit more negative on the game. Well, I do remember myself being negative when I was playing it. Like if I pulled up one of my privated videos of like my playthrough part 3 or something, I think I look like dead in the eyes. As far as this review goes, I did kind of feel like I was probably going to be a little bit more positive because it was during the credits. I just finished the really cool ending sequence. And the other thing that's kind of funny is that I said that I didn't want to see like an alternate timeline, and now I'm all for an alternate timeline. Let's get it.